Good afternoon, everybody. It's your boy Aaron B. And welcome back, the co-host of the show, Shane Card. How's it going, bro?
It's been a long time coming. Happy to be back.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Before we get into the show, we gotta show love to our sponsor, and that is What a Clean Solution. Need to get your carpets clean, couches, tile, and grout, moving in or moving out. Need to get that place looking brand new. Call What a Clean Solution, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean anything from a small carpet to even making your car or truck look brand new. Give them a call or a text at 210-790-1410 and use promo code TNT for 5% off your total cleaning. That's promo code TNT for 210-790-1410 for 5% off. So everybody's probably wondering where Shane been. I'm gonna give the floor to you to tell them what you've been doing and everything.
So back in March, I was hired on at iHeart Radio, and I've been working at the studios a little bit more. But ever since August, really September, life got a little more busy for me. It got to the point where I was not only doing games like UTSA or missions baseball. It got to the point where I was doing all UTSA sports. I was doing the Saturday morning golf show. I started becoming one like the second lead producer for the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm also like a fill-in producer slash co-host for the afternoon show on KTKR, and it's been a lot of fun. But I've also at the same time also like become a dad in that time. I had a daughter back in late September, and so it's been kind of busy for me a little bit. But now my woman's back to work, so I should be back on the show moving forward. But yeah, like I hadn't been on the show as much as I wanted to. I want to be on as many shows as I possibly can. It's just my schedule a lot of times doesn't allow for a lot of the stuff, and I'm sorry if I've let you high and dry a few times, but I'm happy to be back for it.
Oh, it's all good, bro. You be doing your thing when it comes to the social media part of everything. So you're definitely still an integral part of this thing. So no worries. So before you were talking about the Spurs, so I have a quick question. Do you
Mhm.
think the Spurs should trade for DeJounte Murray back to the team?
Yes and no. It makes sense because a potential starting backcourt with him and Devin Vassell with guys like Trey Jones and even Blake Wesley, who's come along real nicely off the bench, really establishes a nice little guard depth, as well as Malachi Branham, who's ran a little bit of point guard for you. The important thing here is they stopped trying to make Jeremy Sohan the point guard. They moved him
Oh,
back to his
I'm glad.
natural like stretch 3/4 position, which he's really been really strong at. And I talked with the voice of the Spurs, Bill Shonen, about this, and when we had talked about it, and this is obviously not on the air. This is like off air stuff. When we talked about like, hey, like would this make a lot of sense? He was talking about that the trade away from Dejounte Murray is probably going to cost less to get him just because he's on such a big contract, but it would still probably cost him a player and some picks. And so I'm wondering who the player or players are, what the picks look like. If I had to guess, I know right now I think their most tradable piece that they're willing to give up is probably going to be Doug McDermott, just because he's a veteran, really reliable 3-point shooter, and obviously he's I think he's 30 or he's turning 30 this year, so obviously they're looking more to go forward towards the youth movement. So it would make sense, especially because Dejounte and the teammates have said that people in the Spurs have said that they love Dejounte. There's no ill will there. I do wonder like how much the fans will react to it because the fans were kind of hurt. Were kind of let's be real, they were kind of hurtful towards him towards the end. But he would definitely bring back a nice defensive presence at the perimeter, an established point guard, established all-star point guard in this league. And if you think about a potential like lineup of Dejounte, Devin Vassell, I get Sohan would probably be the three. Wemby plays that four. Collins would be the five. Keldon Johnson to be your sixth man off the bench. He's been fantastic off the bench. I'm fine keeping him there. You got Trey Jones still, and also the rise of people like Jetty Osman and Dominic Barlow and guys like that. The Spurs would actually have some really quality young depth there, so I would welcome it. I would watch out for how many draft picks they want to give because the Spurs have a lot of draft picks between June and I think over the next 2 or 3 years because of the moves they've made. So yes, with an asterisk.
Okay, absolutely. I can definitely see that. There's another guy I think that could be on the trading block, and that's a Devontae Graham, who's not really getting much playing time, like you're saying. You got the emergence of Blake Wesley.
But he doesn't have a whole lot of value though. He didn't have a ton of value right now in terms of their list. He's their fourth, maybe fifth point guard option, depending on how you view Malachi. Brandon, I think, is more of a pure shooting guard, but he can run the point.
Yeah.
Right now, their best pure point guard is Trey Jones. But with the extended minutes, he's actually proven to be a really quality point guard. I don't know if he's a true starting guard, but he's a really quality point guard. But Devontae Graham, I guess, if you wanted to, would throw that in there. But he would be one of those guys you could trade just so they could take on the salary and then dump him.
Yeah,
that'd be one of those kind of moves. But if the team is looking for, the Hawks, I guess, are looking for a player, the most likely candidate that they could probably get for the most value would probably be McDermott. That's the name we're hearing the most.
Yeah, McDermott definitely's got to be in the trade package, and I think this year we have 3 first-round picks. So throwing one of those first-round picks, maybe a future pick, and McDermott and something else in there. Probably bring them.
And 2 of them could be potential lottery picks. I'm pretty sure because we own because obviously we have our own. We have what
is it? Toronto and Charlotte, something like
that. I think I forgot who it was, but the other one we own is obviously the Atlanta because we got theirs for DeJounte.
Oh yeah.
But they ain't getting that first back.
Nah, we're keeping that one for sure. We gotta.
No, but the way Atlanta, that's probably going to be like a 20 to 30 pick, which is fine.
Yeah, I almost forgot that we were talking about football, but I kind of got.
Yeah, this tacos and touchdowns. That's a different topic for a different show.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit and
that's
everything
cool.
about.
That's cool. I know you're a Spurs fan. I can answer questions. I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk to some of these people that actually work close with the Spurs. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you definitely having fun with that, bro. But our first topic of the night is end of an era of like 3 coaches in 24 hours. We lost. Nick Saban retires.
Yep.
Pete Carroll
stepped down.
Yeah.
And now Bill Belichick.
Yeah. 3 coaches that have been in the league for decades on decades. And now their era is gone. But one of them's actually saying that he wouldn't mind still coaching, and that's Pete Carroll. It's kind of, I don't know about Bill Belichick, but I think Nick Saban is calling
Belichick.
it quits.
Belichick, I think, could if for the right opportunity. I think he's in a nice, comfortable spot to where if he decided to come back, he would. He might miss it. He might just enjoy retirement. But some of those guys just never lose that competitive drive. Saban outright retired. I think he's just ready for it. He's done the NFL thing. He's been in college football for a long time. He might just be comfortable where he's at, and that's fine too. But I mean, I think Saban's kind of a word of an asshole, but I respect what he's accomplished. As far as but I think I'll say it's kind of unfair that Pete Carroll has kind of become forgotten about with those 3 guys. People forget that Pete Carroll was one of the best coaches in college and NFL football. He was around with the Seahawks almost as long as Belichick was around with the Patriots for 15 years. People forget that he was in Super Bowl twice. He won one. I think they were the NFC Championship game 3 times during his tenure, 3 or 4 times. The Seahawks were a successful franchise under Pete Carroll. He's probably gonna be a Hall of Fame head coach. And fun fact, and I'll see if you know this, Pete Carroll is one of only 2 coaches to ever win a Super Bowl and a national championship as a head coach. Do you know the other one?
Jimmy Johnson.
There we go. Johnson.
I would have lost my Cowboy card if I did not remember that one.
Yeah, I thought actually no wait. I might be. Is Barry Switzer? Did Barry Switzer win a national championship? I don't know if Barry Switzer won one, but that's beside the point. No, Pete Carroll, I feel like is being disrespected. That the tenure he had in Seattle is just kind of being forgot about. With respect to Belichick and Saban, 2 of the greatest coaches in the prospective fields of all time, we can't forget about how great Pete Carroll's been.
Yeah, it was like it came at the wrong time, him going, because now you have Nick Saban and Bill Belichick's going to take all the glory. But if I was a player, if I had to choose which coach I would be wanting to be coach under, it'd probably be Pete Carroll. That man may be like in his early 70s, but that guy got like the energy of like a 20-year-old.
Yeah, he's 71, 72, you're right.
Yeah. And Barry Switzer did win some national titles back in the 70s.
Well, then he's another one. Yeah, I forgot about Barry Switzer. I was talking on my butt there, but I was like thinking, I don't think anybody else besides Jimmy and Pete. But Barry's another one. 2 of them Cowboys coaches. So I'm looking right now at Pete Carroll's accomplishments while he was in the NFL as an NFL head coach. Obviously, he had those 3 years. He was the Patriots head coach. He had the 1 year with the Jets. And this is obviously over his career span. For those that don't know, Pete Carroll was the head coach of the Jets in 1994, and that was it. He was 6-10, and then that was it. And then he was the Patriots head coach from 97 to 99. Those of us old enough to remember, Aaron, I know I'm not going to give you age out there, but I know that you'll be old enough to know, like, yeah, he was the Patriots head coach, like, before Belichick.
I remember.
And so there's like, yeah, but yeah, while he was there, Patriots were 10-6, 9-7, 8-8. So they were solid. That's a 9-7 overall average record there. So that's whatever. But Pete Carroll's total career win percentage, wins and losses, was 170 wins, 120 losses, and then obviously one tie. And that didn't even count the postseason records. So I think it's very easy to overlook Pete Carroll just because of the aura and the legend that Bill Belichick has created for himself as arguably the greatest coach in the NFL. And the same for Nick Saban in college football, winning 7 national championships, 1 with LSU, 6 with Alabama, and just multiple SEC championships and first-round draft picks. I think they said Saban had like 49 career first-round draft picks as a head coach combined, which I think was the most. The second most was 33 from Joe Paterno during his time with Penn State. But Joe Paterno obviously coached for, I think, 40 years with Penn State. So that's even more impressive that he had almost 20 more than Joe Pa in less than half the time.
Yeah, majority of them were defensive players when you think about it when it comes to Alabama.
Who do you think, in your opinion, who do you think, we'll stick with Bama because it seems easier. Who was the greatest Saban prospect to make it in the NFL? The greatest one. It could be offense, defense. Who do you think the greatest one is?
You just talking about overall?
Overall.
NFL too?
No, from he was coached by Saban. He got drafted in the NFL. Who ended up with being the greatest player?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I'm trying to think.
There's a lot of us too, but
yeah, that too. One comes to mind like early in his career. Julio Jones is one.
Julio Jones is a top 10 receiver. That's a good answer. Yeah. Julio Jones is a top 10 all-time receiver, not present day, all-time receiver.
Yeah, like in his first few years in the game, you definitely got to play him. I'm trying to think defense. There were so many of them.
To me, I think defense. First of all, Reuben Foster was just like a total what-if type player. That dude had it all. I'm trying to think like who the best defensive player it would have been. I think Courtney Upshaw was a really good player for Dante Hightower.
Who's that linebacker for? Who's that linebacker for the Jets? I'm trying to remember his name.
For the Jets. Yeah. He used to play for the Vikings too. What's his name? Yeah, you gotta look that up because I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can look it up right now, but
also Derrick Henry. We can't forget about Derrick Henry. It felt like the majority of the great players that came from Alabama into the NFL a lot of times were offensive guys. Amari Cooper was another one. Obviously, C.J. Mosley, yes, great player. Yeah, Devontae Smith was another one. Mark Ingram is going to be in the Saints Ring of Honor. Maybe not Hall of Fame, but he's getting Saints Ring of Honor. They had a handful of really good offensive linemen. I know Jonah Williams has established himself really well in Cincinnati. Landon Dickerson, the left guard for the Eagles. Yeah. So they've had a lot of quality players. Obviously, in terms of quarterbacks, they didn't have too many good quarterbacks, but Tua obviously stands out.
It's like when it comes to quarterbacks, it's just Tua, and then if you want to, you got half.
Do not count Jalen Hurts. He does not count. Okay, it does not count. If Texas, and I'm a Texas Tech fan, if Texas Tech fans can't claim Baker Mayfield, then Bama fans can't claim Jalen Hurts. That's just how it is.
They're still trying to claim Jalen Hurts. Like it's where we ended this.
It's career. The rules. It's the rules. Like the place you left is the place you get to claim.
I'm trying to think if there's been some Texas transfers and we can't claim them.
And we haven't talked about like Pete Carroll's establishment, like in college as a college coach and an NFL coach. In college, he had like a nice little line of like players coming in the NFL. You saw Carson Palmer do really, really well.
Yeah,
I think he won the Heisman, then followed up by Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush. I still maintain Reggie Bush to me. Offense, defense, doesn't matter. I think he might be the best, greatest college football player I've ever seen in my lifetime. And like my lifetime, in terms of like actually watching football, I don't want to get my age out there, but like I started watching football for perspective in like the late 90s, just and that's about the time I started actually watching it when I was a kid. Again, don't want to give my age out there. I ain't giving your age out there, but yeah, Reggie Bush was like just Reggie Bush was. Think about it this way: every time Steph Curry would shoot the 3-pointer, you would always assume it was going in more than you thought it was going to miss, right? Steph Curry
Yeah,
was just that lethal. You always felt like Reggie Bush was going to break one free for a touchdown every time he touched the ball. He was unstoppable at USC.
yeah, he was electric. His game would definitely fit in today's game the way he
Oh yeah,
plays.
he was an era too early.
Yeah, like his versatility and everything. He basically did everything on offense. And if the video gamers out there, when you had Reggie Bush, when you played him, you almost automatically
I
got
would
to
do franchise mode a lot of times in Madden '06, and I would have it to where I had the Falcons trade for Reggie Bush. That way, I could run a bunch of option plays with Michael Vick and Reggie Bush. So it was kind of
uh,
cheating.
that's a cheat code right there.
It's cheating, and then obviously Michael Vick like that didn't last long. So
Yeah,
um, but yeah, like all those coaches obviously had a huge imprint on college and or NFL. And the fact that we lost all three of them in under 24 hours is kind of like not really hard to swallow, but like it's just like it's hard to comprehend.
yeah. But two of them you kind of understand. Like, okay, it really kind of is their time to retire. They didn't did a lot of accomplishments and everything. But the Pete Carroll one kind of threw me off, and it was just
Yeah, that was out of nowhere.
yeah, that's out of nowhere. But before we get off the topic, do you see like any perfect replacements for those jobs at this moment?
It sounds like Gerard Mayo might be a favorite or leading candidate for the Patriots job. He's a former Belichick coach, a former Belichick player. And what would work for him is that like they wouldn't have to interview anybody else because in accordance with the Rooney Rule, you're required to
Yeah,
interview at least one head coach of color or per every single time, which a lot of
yeah,
people don't like because at that point you're tokenizing coaches. How many times has Marvin Lewis gotten an interview just so they could appease the Rooney Rule? But
yeah,
but Gerard Mayo to me, I think it would be a serious candidate. I would like to see Gerard Mayo get that gig. It sounds like he has Belichick's approval as well. In terms of Bama, I'm happy Dan Lannon is staying put in Oregon. I don't know if I would want to be the guy that has to follow up Nick Saban with all that. Plus,
yeah,
you have to wonder how many of those players that the recruits that they promised to come only came for Saban. Now that he's gone, do they even want to go through what would be essentially a rebuild? Um,
that's,
I'm willing to bet they're going to make a splash move though. Bama is they got a nice little alumni network there to pay a head coach. When it comes to Pete Carroll in Seattle, I mean Dan Quinn, sorry Cowboys fans, seems like a logical fit.
yeah,
I do wonder though at this point in his career, like more than likely they're gonna have to draft a young quarterback at some point. Seattle is, even though they have a nice established starter in Geno Smith. Does he want to go through what would be a potential rebuild somewhere between now and the next 2 or 3 years? So they might offer a younger guy there instead. Even though Dan Quinn, I know he has an attachment there, he has a fan base out there. He would make a lot of sense.
yeah. I think that's probably the top candidate in their minds with Seattle. I did read up on something that when it comes to the Bama job, I know one of the top ones they're thinking about is the Washington head coach. Was it named the Bauer or something?
Oh yeah, Kalen DeBoer, yeah, and
Yeah, the boy.
I hope not. I hope he stays put in Washington. I hope he turns Washington into a power. And sometimes like these guys who make these like not necessarily irrelevant programs, but not blue blood programs into powerhouses. They think like, oh, there's something else better out there. When the reality is that you created the better environment for yourself.
Yeah,
And I've also seen Dabo Sweeney being a name. Dabo, like
nah,
Dabo, just stay at Clemson. Just be your own Nick Saban. Be your
yeah,
own Nick Saban. I'm fine with some of these guys staying put. I could see some people said Sark leaving Texas. Um, I don't think he has the stuff for that. Honestly, I think where he's at in Texas is probably kind of secure for him.
yeah.
Lane Kiffin will make sense. Lane Kiffin job hops.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Leighton Kiffin will take any opportunity that they say. Like
Yeah,
I don't know how many teams in the past 10 years he's been a part of. It is a big old long list of.
it
If,
feels like every 2 or 3 years he's hopping somewhere else.
yeah, he's an opportunist. So if that, I wouldn't be surprised he's the Alabama head coach.
Right.
I couldn't think of any other ones beside it. I think Lane.
They're gonna go for a big name. It's just first we got to see which big names are actually willing to take the job because Dan Lannon outright said he didn't want it.
Yeah, I heard about that. But the Gerard Mayo makes sense because the Patriots seem like they're not trying to waste time and like try to
No,
make a big splash play. Just hire somebody we got on the coaching staff. Gerard Mayo's been here for years, so why not? I think that'd be a good one. It's just hopefully they can get an offensive mind on the offensive coordinator because it's kind of been stagnant with their offense. But our next topic we got is the recap of the Cowboys versus the Commanders game. What are 3 takes you took from that game that you think that can go into this game against the Packers?
3 things that I took away from that game that could translate into this weekend. Number 1, Dak Prescott knows where to find the open man and get guys open. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about the Packers game. Mm-hmm. I trust no defensive player at this stage in the game, at this point, more than DeMarcus Lawrence at this point, because he just seems to find his way to the running back. And the other thing I think will translate, honestly, is overfeeding CeeDee Lamb.
Absolutely.
It seems like just because he's such a complex and elite route runner, he's able to scheme himself open that even if you have a really good shutdown corner, he finds himself open. The best corner he went up against this year was Sauce Gardner, and he still had a good game. The Cowboys still blew them out. There's going to be other good corners out there. Right now, the Packers, their best corner, quote unquote, best corner is Jair Alexander. He didn't practice today. Doesn't really sound like Packers fans are all love him all of a sudden. The last 2 years, he has not been. He's either not been healthy or he's not been as good. It sounds like he's become a bit of a problem in the locker room. So, if it's CeeDee Lamb or not, I'm feeding him the ball, and whoever's going to be covered by Jair, I might want to test. But yeah, those three by far. Dak should at least be considered for MVP. If not, he should be second team All-Pro. I stand on that. DeMarcus Lawrence, to me, is right now playing the best of any defensive player the Cowboys have, and I trust him the most. And CeeDee Lamb needs to be fed and fed and fed.
There's absolutely no doubt that CD should get the ball. And then you also can look at some other stats. Jake Ferguson should have a good game this week as well. So,
Jake, I'm glad you brought that up. But I want actually, you know what? I'm gonna save it for when we talk about the Green Bay game. In terms of this game itself, I was a little concerned at first because the Washington had the ball and they were driving the ball down the field and they got into that fourth down situation. Then Damone Clark made a good read on Brian Robinson and pushed him into the opposite tackle, caused the tackle, and they turned the ball over. And from there it was over. But I really want to highlight T.J. Bass at left guard and Brock Hoffman at right guard. Brock Hoffman found out like hours before the game he was starting because Zach Martin had the flu. Now, it sounds like Zach Martin's going to be just fine. It sounds like he's going to be healthy and ready to go for the game, which is nice. And it sounds like Tyler Smith actually has a real good shot to play this week, which is good too. But the fact that we had two young, like, rotational guys in T.J. Bass, Brock Hoffman come in and play as dominant as they did, I've never seen Brock Hoffman play that nasty. And T.J. Bass just really feels like he's figured out how to pass block. He's always been an established run blocker going back to his days at Oregon, but he's really, over the time that he's been on the field, and he's been on the field a bunch because they rest their starters in the fourth quarter so much, he's figuring out how to pass block really well. And I think the Cowboys might have found something in T.J. Bass moving forward once they get once obviously some questions have to be answered and some hard decisions have to be made.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that both these guys are undrafted guys that some people never heard of, but they stepped up when your starting players were down. So It's great to see that. One of my other takes from the game is the Commanders' run game was basically non-existent. You had Brian Robinson, who had 9 carries for 25 yards with under 3 yards per carry. Chris Samuels had 1 carry for 15 yards. And then Antonio Gibson had 2 yards for 8 yards.
Right.
And then you already talked about the Dak. My other one was Micah Parsons got his 14th sack. He's been held by all the time during the game, but Micah Parsons got his 14th sack of the season.
Man, I don't want to talk about the refs. I'm tired of talking about the refs. This has been the worst year of officiating I've seen since the replacement ref season.
Oh,
across the league, not just Cowboys, not just for against Cowboys. There have been calls that have gone to the Cowboys' benefit, and I'm glad they called it for us, but that is a terrible call. Or how did they miss that? Micah Parsons hadn't been called. Hadn't had a holding call on him since week 7.
Yeah,
Put that in
and
perspective.
it felt like it's been forever since then too. But that's making him the 5th player in history since the sacks has been tracked since 1982 to have at least 40 sacks in 3 seasons. So
Mm-hmm. He
that's
also
saying a
led the
lot,
league in. He also led the league in QB rushes, which says something because he's held so often. If they call holding a lot more often, he's free. Just think what his stats look like.
man. And this to think that he would possibly be in that range to be defensive player of the year, but you got a guy like Myles Garrett who probably
I think they might give it to Micah. I really think they might. He has like all the momentum going his way.
yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it to Myles Garrett because, and this could be a nice little transition piece that like the media and the voters and everything is incredibly anti-Cowboys. It's kind of frustrating. And this is not me being a Cowboys fan screaming. This is like me seeing what I've seen. Too often you see these analysts on shows like Get Up, First Things First, whatever the hell the show is, Undisputed. They go out there and it's obvious, and they've admitted that they don't like the Cowboys, and so that any opinion they have on them is going to sway it. And there's too many people who are too stupid to think their own opinion, so they go with these analysts' opinions about the Cowboys. And what's unfortunate is that because they work for a major media network, they get MVP votes. These people, Dan Orlovsky has an MVP vote, and this dumbass, yes, he took a picture of his ballot, his MVP ballot. And he had Lamar, and then Josh Allen, and then Dak, and then McCaffrey, and then Purdy. Okay. And my issue wasn't that he had Lamar 1. Some people think Lamar is worth it. I would say to them, other than rushing yards and team record, where was he better than Dak as a quarterback? But Dan Orlovsky all last season kept talking about Dak's turnovers, Dak's interceptions. Well, here you have Josh Allen, who led the league not just in interceptions but overall turnovers. And Dan Orlovsky thinks that he not only should be the second MVP candidate, that he had a better season than Dak Prescott as a quarterback. I understand that Josh Allen, the Bills, beat the Cowboys, but Josh Allen has not been a better quarterback than Dak Prescott has been this year. That is an unequivocal fact. Okay, there's no discernible truth to that. But what sucks is that because he works for ESPN and players like him, former players like him, and journalists like him who think the same way get MVP votes, they will never vote for a Cowboys player, even though Dak has had a good case, if not a better case than anybody else out there. Did you know there's only been one Cowboys player to ever win the MVP? Do you know who that is?
Oh, dang.
Emmitt Smith in 1993 was the one time. That was the one time a Cowboys player has won MVP. Not Roger Staubach, not Troy Aikman, not Tony Dorsett back when the running game ruled the world.
Yeah.
Emmitt Smith in 1993, and he only won one. Emmitt Smith, who some people think is the greatest running back of all time, won one. That was the only time.
That's over 30 years at this point that we haven't even seen an MVP. And then I know another factor they're going to put into if Lamar wins the MVP is, well, they beat the 49ers and they beat the Dolphins, and the Cowboys didn't beat
the Cowboys got smoked by the Niners, and they also beat the Dolphins. So here's what I'll say about this. Against like winning record teams, playoff teams, the Cowboys are 4-3. The Cowboys are 4-3. They won one, lost one with the Eagles. They lost to the Niners, and they lost to the Bills, and they lost to the Dolphins. Okay, so that actually be okay. Sorry, I might have got the number wrong there. But they beat the Eagles, they beat the Rams, they beat the Seahawks, and they beat the Lions. So they are 4-4 against playoff level or playoff record teams in the NFL. So don't tell me they don't have those wins. They are 4-4. And yes, that Rams win does count for something. I don't care at what time of the year it was. They beat them.
Yeah, and they're in the playoffs, so you can't say they're not
They are in the playoffs, exactly. Well, no, yes, they are. The Seahawks ain't in the playoffs, but the Seahawks finished with the winning record. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I got more to say. I'm sorry, but another thing that I said was that I don't know if we can give Dak the MVP because he's gonna have all these great numbers, but they're gonna be the 5 seed. Well, you know what? Now the Cowboys not only won the NFC East, they get the 2 seed. They have a top 3 seed, which they said if you're an MVP candidate, you have to be a top 3 seed. He's done everything you want of him. He is the only quarterback in the NFL that is in a top 3 seed, that is top 3 in passing yards, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, passing yards, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, total QBR, total passer rating, and adjusted QBR on the run, and adjusted QBR against the blitz. He is the only quarterback that is top 3 in all 3 of those. So it doesn't matter if he's in the pocket or he's being blitzed or he's on the run. He has been the overall best one, or at least top 3 in those regards, and they are still probably not going to give it to him, even though there's really no other quarterback that you could argue has had a better season than him. In fact, I would say this: it's not why should Dak win MVP. Tell me why he shouldn't. I want to hear these analysts tell me why he shouldn't. I want them to be real. And I don't want them to use any sort of reason as to why they said he shouldn't be to begin with. I don't want to hear about turnovers. I don't want to hear about this. Put aside your Cowboy bias for a second, your anti-Cowboy bias for a second, because it's obvious, because we've had people on shows like Orlovsky and Kimberly Martin and Stephen A. Smith and Emmanuel Acho. This is all true. You can look this up. All 4 of them in some sort of fashion have said that talking about the Cowboys ad nauseum drives ratings. And whenever they lose, it's even better. And when a bunch of those guys I just mentioned, I've vocally said that they don't like the Cowboys. So that is why it frustrates me, is that Dak can have one of his best seasons ever. He didn't lead the league in interceptions like people thought he would.
Yeah.
He had less than 10, which by the way was a made up quote that someone said he said, but he never said that, but he still did it. And they're still going to find a way to not give it to him. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Let's move on.
I get you, bro. So the next thing is we're talking about key matches. What's a key match you see in this game that you got your eye on?
Okay, so I'm gonna take away CeeDee Lamb for a second, and I'm gonna talk about just in general who is gonna cover Jake Ferguson. I tweeted this out earlier today about like where the Packers are when they cover tight ends, and they have been actually pretty bad covering tight ends. So the Packers on the regular season, have allowed over 12 yards, to be exact, 12.06 yards per reception to the tight end position. That is 31st in the NFL. In fact, they've had 4 games where they have allowed at least 80 or more total yards to the opposing tight ends, and 8 games where they allow 5+ receptions to opposing tight ends. So not only do I expect Ferguson to be a key factor in this game, I think they expect him to have a big-time game. I'm talking about like 4 or 5 catches, touchdown, 75+ yards. He might be the second leading receiver behind CeeDee Lamb, because I don't know who amongst their hurt secondary can cover him. The fact that the Packers shipped out Rasul Douglas, who's now become one of the best corners in Buffalo, by the way, how badly do the Packers fans miss him right now? Because the way that Jair Alexander's playing, and I think Valentine is the other cornerback, they have a torn up secondary. There's no reason why Dak and this offense shouldn't torch this secondary. I'm being fair. I'm not being disrespectful. One thing about me, Aaron, is that I will call the Cowboys out, but I will also sing their praises when I know they have an advantage.
Yeah, when you look at their pass defense, it's pretty suspect, and it's due to the fact that they're beaten. They don't have Rasul Douglas on the other side, and now Zaire's not looking like the corner that we've seen in yesterday's pass. And now, top it off, he has a bum ankle. So imagine a bum ankle Jair Alexander playing against a shifty type of receiver like CeeDee Lamb throughout the whole game. So that's going to be kind of.
Or Brandon Cooks. Try keep up with him on a bum leg.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like that probably your third leading receiver out there. And then you may see some quick catches out to like a Jalen Tolbert or some other guys out there. Because you never know. We're going to switch it up, and then you got Mike McCarthy might be in his bag this game, of course, since he's playing against his former team. But I want to get into one of my key matchups, and that is what's his name? The left tackle for the Packers versus our Micah Parsons, and that is who's been struggling on the left side this year, but on the right side, Zach Tom is doing having a really good season. But I'm gonna see. I think there's gonna be a lot of Micah Parsons on that left side, trying to generate that pressure. Like you're saying, he's one of the top pressure.
He's the top pressure creator.
Yeah, I think that's why you're gonna see him right there, and then he's gonna be that offside, that linebacker, and as well just beyond on that left side, just generating pressure against him. And then one of my questions, and it's a key matchup, is how does Terrence Steele handle a guy like Rashawn Gray, who's been having because it's kind of an underrated season, and it's like I know we got Terrence Steele, who's kind of he's still recovering from that ACL injury. Yeah. I think they should kind of kept him a little bit. They shouldn't have put him out so early. Mm-hmm. I understand that we needed that right tackle to be secure, but it's just he's not 2020 Terrence Steele, but he's not at the level he was last year after that before that ACL injury. It's, and when you're looking at a guy like Gary, he has 8 sacks, 22 QB hits, and 2 forced fumbles. The only goal I have for Terrence Steele is just try to minimize Gary as much as possible on that right side so that can get that ball quick as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that their front seven can create some problems when they have Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith blitz on each side. Obviously, inside they have players like Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt who've had solid seasons. I think they actually combined for 13 sacks between them. So they have a nice little pass rush up the middle. So I expect them to want to bring a lot of pressure on Dak. Once again, though, Dak has the highest completion percentage and QBR against the blitz. So if you want to, you can, but a lot of times that extends out the offensive plays, and then you're asking a lot more of your secondary. I also expect there to be a lot of boots and a lot of play action because so they can get Dak moving. Just because a lot of times when you have a front seven like the Packers do, which can create pressure, it's you want to get Dak moving quicker so he's able to generate speed. And obviously that gives him a little more time for your receivers to get open, which I expect them to do.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the ball, I think it'll be interesting how the secondary looks, just because this Packers receiving crew is there's no world beaters on here, right? Right now, the leading receiver is the rookie Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. I remember I had him as my 10th overall receiver in the draft. They took him in the second round. I had a 4th round pick on him. Close enough. He's had a good season. Yes. Romeo Doubs is like kind of their X receiver. He's like that one-on-one matchup guy. So I expect that to be Gilmore's guy. I think Gilmore's gonna be the guy that's gonna cover Doubs. And Devontae Wicks is kind of like a nice little deep threat they have. He's averaging about 15 yards per reception. That would be Watson, but Watson's been in and out of the lineup. It seems like he's kind of lost favor for whatever reason there. He's been hurt a little bit, but also he's been healthy and been healthy scratches. Mm-hmm. So Reed, Dobbs, and Wicks are going to be their main receivers. Wicks is going to be the deep threat guy. I think that's who Bland is going to cover more than likely because Jaden Reed likes to play primarily in the slot, and which actually might not be that bad of a deal just because Jordan Lewis has played really well these last couple of weeks. So I would expect him to be. I expect them to not only throw the ball to Jaden Reed. I expect the Cowboys to figure out a way to get someone like a Wilson, a Donovan Wilson, or even a Jaron Kearse in the space of the area to where the route might be going, just to give Lewis some extra help. Just because we know he's going to be a heavy targeted guy, and they'll want to move that ball down the field. One thing people talk about the Packers offense, they don't really do a whole lot of these like normal dash plays. They like to do a lot of big chunk plays. And that could be good for your secondary just because the Cowboys don't allow a whole lot of big plays. And that's also where they get a lot of their turnovers from. So this might be a nice matchup for your secondary against a young but still talented receiving core.
Yeah, when you see a lot of the big plays, especially when Donald been the way he's been playing these past couple of weeks, I think this could be an opportunity for him to make another pick or something. Or you may see J-Ron get one as well. Or just like you're saying, just being in that space just so that they can stop those big plays happening. They've been doing a great job overall these past few weeks. So I know this is our last but not least one. What is our keys to victories this week? What do we need to do to beat the Packers?
All right, first one is to key up on Aaron Jones because he's had some big games. He's had 3 games straight of 100 plus yards. 2 of them were for 120 yards plus. So I think we know the Packers want to be able to run to the edges because a lot of the Cowboys run defense has been susceptible. So we need Micah, Donovan Wilson, and DeMarcus Lawrence especially to all step up well against the running. So key up on Aaron Jones. The other thing is going to be to get Jordan Love out of the pocket because he has not been very good when running out of the pocket. I think I saw somewhere online that his QBR when in the pocket is like 30 or almost 40 points higher than when he has to throw on the run. So he's not very comfortable throwing on the run. So we got to be able to put pressure on him. And the other thing is just gonna be, and this is like sort of like it's easier said than done, but Mike McCarthy needs to like not let the game be bigger than itself. Mike McCarthy talked about the last time that he coached against the Packers. Like he had those old emotions coming back because that's his old team. He's in Lambeau, and he's still revered in Green Bay. So he needs to sort of just put that to the wayside and coach the game as is because there's no reason why the Cowboys shouldn't win this game. But too often we've seen those games where the Cowboys will falter. And so I'm hoping the Cowboys take care of business as they should, and it starts with Mike McCarthy not letting the game be bigger than it needs to be.
And just add on to that stat about when you're talking about Jordan Love, one thing I looked up about if we generate a quick pressure, Love averages time the pressure sits at 2.44 seconds when we create pressure, but his average time to throw is 2.72. So I think it's a possibility that we could lead to some pressure against Jordan Love this week, and
Yep.
just give him and that could generate into turnovers. That's one thing I looked at. That was pretty interesting. Just putting moving around guys like Michael Parsons, the left or right side, figuring out which side is susceptible where Michael Parsons could to make plays, and then when it comes to the running game, have DeMarcus Lawrence and Donovan Wilson a part of that as well. Do you know if Jonathan Hankins is playing this week?
Well, he played against Washington, so yeah, he'll be there.
Okay, I didn't. I was just making sure.
He's gonna be big also. Like I think I saw online somewhere the Cowboys run defense is like 3 yards per carry less when he's on the field. So he's a big factor.
Yeah, like if somebody asked me who's the most underrated player on this team, I think it'd be Hankins. Overall, it's just how much effective he's been as a run stopper.
He's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and trying to the I think that's about my main thing is they got to attack these DBs. They allow 100.3 rate against receivers. They're 28th in the league, and they're 23rd rate allowed to tight ends. So I say, like we've been saying, feed the ball to Lamb, Cook, and Ferg, and we should do a great job. It's just this their pass defense is not that good, but they're still a team you don't sleep on. And like you're saying, Mike McCarthy got to put his forget all about the memories he had in Green Bay and just focus on the game. And then afterwards, he can have all go back to memory lane after we win this game. That's my main thing right there.
I agree.
Yeah. But lastly, we still got we got other games going on. What's one game that you got your eye on this week?
I'm not gonna say Detroit, LA, because I feel like everyone's gonna watch that one just because it's Goff versus Stafford. Stafford comes home. There's no Sam Laporta. I actually picked the Rams in this game. I don't think Detroit hosting their first playoff game since Reagan was in office is a long time coming. Yeah, so I trust McVay and his playoff experience a little bit more in this one. But the game that I'm watching out for might be a game that might actually get moved, and that's Kansas City versus Miami, because there's potential that the wind chill could have it to where it feels like -30, and some people are talking about how like this could potentially be dangerous to the players themselves, and they might move it to either like a neutral site or a dome, similar to how like Buffalo last year, I believe it was last year, they moved some of those games to Detroit just because the weather was so bad out there that it became dangerous for them to even play in the outdoors, and so I wonder about that. And again, we're at this day and age in the NFL. All teams, especially cold weather cities, should be in domes. I said it. They need to be in domes.
Yeah, there's one team that's never gonna go into, and that's Green Bay. They're gonna be the one that's
Yeah,
gonna stick.
well, Lambeau's Lambeau.
Yeah, like every other team is gonna have to eventually get a dome. And whether when it comes to that, are they going? You think they'll go to Miami, or is there gonna be like this
No,
neutral?
no, the Miami didn't get to host it just because of that. Like more than
Uh,
likely, they would probably go somewhere nearby with the dome or somewhere neutral. I don't think St. Louis has their dome stadium anymore. I don't believe that would make
um,
sense because is their old Ram Stadium still there?
I'm about to look that up right now
Because
because
I don't know if they knocked that down or not. If not, then I think like somewhere else close might be like Indianapolis. I feel like that'd be a potential area.
yeah,
Uh, the Viking Stadium would make sense because it's far from Miami, but it's close enough. Maybe the Superdome out in New Orleans, something like that.
it's got to be. Oh, it's what was it called? I'm trying to think what the name of the stadium is. That's gonna bother me. I just seen it.
It's not that big a deal. It's just but that's essentially what would happen is they would move it to a neutral site in a dome stadium.
Oh, it's still there.
Oh well, there you go.
Oh yeah, because the XFL team was still playing there, the St. Louis
Oh yeah, the
Battlehawks.
Battlehawks. Yeah.
So they could just go there because Kansas City is technically in Missouri, so it's just couple hours down the road. So that makes perfect sense. But hey, this has been a great show. Definitely glad to have you back, a part of it and everything. So before
Happy to be back.
yeah, absolutely. One of the main. I forgot to tell y'all, we do have our YouTube channel, Tacos and Touchdown Live. Make sure to subscribe to it as well, because I know it's been on Off the Ball Network, but now you can check it out on Tacos and Touchdown Live. And make sure to follow all of our social medias and everything. And it's right here at Tacos and Touchdown. All of our social medias are Tacos and Touchdown. Make sure to follow on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Is there anything else that I forget?
Go Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not even put the score, but I just hope for a great game. The Cowboys come with the dub, and we're gonna be back talking about the next game ahead. Yes, sir. But this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one. Peace.